Sam Dunn's all-new podcast, Caught in a Rant. Available now, exclusively on Patreon.
BangerTV, what's going on? Daniel, Dekay here for another episode of Overkill Reviews, our weekly heavy metal review show. Since reviewing Obituary last month, I've managed to get my studio setup going here at my new place, so welcome to my Metal Cave 2.0. I hope it sounds and looks as crispy as it should.
Looks good!
This time around, I'm reviewing the latest offering from a Gothenburg band that is pretty much a household name when it comes to giants of the genre. That's right, it's the new In Flames record entitled Foregone, released February 10th on Nuclear Blast Records. Now, this is a band that I'm very well aware and a fan of their 90s output, but full admission, I haven't listened to an entire In Flames record since the early 2000s. So why don't we do some learning together on this one? Formed in 1990 in Gothenburg, In Flames are pioneers of the melodeath and Swedish death metal genres. They've had tons of members come and go, some permanent, some session throughout their career, but the core of the band today remains Bjorn on guitar and Anders on vocals, both of whom have been with the band since 1995. Foregone is their 14th studio album, and during that output, In Flames have explored many different genre influences, evolving their sound from their early melodic death metal majesty into something much more alternative and hard rock based. They're one of those bands that managed to successfully evolve and change their sound in a way that opened them up to much bigger audiences and therefore much bigger opportunities. However, that's kind of where I fall off with this band as a fan of the early shit. So let's kind of assess. This review has been pitched to me as sort of In Flames returning to their roots with their 14th album. So let's dive into it together and see if they've still got it. In a modern world that currently seems to be dominated by low guttural and swampy vocals, it's really nice to hear some more mid to higher pitched screaming vocals. The shrillness of Anders' voice cuts the mix really well and differentiates itself from the range of the down-tuned guitars. This makes the vocals not only easier to hear, but the lyrics easier to understand, which is a win-win. You already heard a pretty perfect example of Anders' shrillness and screams in that intro track, so let's keep this review rolling and move on to my first negative point of the record. Okay, so it's a bit of a love-hate situation here with the vocals, because while I just talked about how much I loved the screaming on the album, I need to point out for as much screaming as there are equal parts of overly produced, overly poppy, clean vocals, and I'm not a fan of them at all. I'd also like to point out that I'm not just hating on clean vocals as a concept. I do believe there's a time and a place for everything, but I don't think that we needed this.
I wanna tell you before I die, I walk the mile and I do it again. The darkness that became me, you're the reason I'm still breathing. I walk the mile and I do it again.
Or this.
How did we end up here?
Okay, so I just pointed out that there's a time and a place for everything, and that leads me to the hooky choruses. They're all over this record, with some being far better than the others, but the good ones are pretty damn good. Stylistically, there's a few types of vocal hooks on the album, ranging from this gangier style of like layered, raspy ones. You hear that on State of Slow Decay, to these more super smooth, clean, reverbed out ones, like on Meet Your Maker, to the absolute throwaway, I can't believe what I'm listening to, whiny hook on In the Dark. My favorite variation on the whole record has got to be the more aggressive ones with the melodic sensibility, like this one that we hear on The Great Deceiver.
What do you do? The sky is on fire and the angels cry. The sky is on fire and the angels cry. The sky is on fire and the angels cry.
I've basically been talking about vocals this entire time, so let's quickly shift gears and talk about the riffs. Now, while not every single song lives up to its true riff potential, in my opinion, it is worth noting that there is a healthy amount of that really aggressive, mellow-deathy riffing, reminiscent of that early Gothenburg sound that we absolutely loved about this band. There's healthy amounts of bounce and chug and trem picking and those octavey melodies exactly where they need to be. Check out this badass and ridiculously reminiscent, and I mean ridiculously reminiscent of At the Gates riffer right here on State of Slow Decay. All right, for all these positive elements and high points I just talked about in length, I think it's very important that I make it very clear that there is just simply not enough of them. I understand the importance of the peaks and valley dynamic when it comes to a full-length record, but there's literally a 3-song run on the back half of this album that just feels like boring mid-tempo filler. I wouldn't mind that run so much if there was something as memorable as a groove, a lyrical passage, or a hook that could grab me, but even after a handful of listens, nothing about certain songs like In the Dark, Pure Light of Mine, and Cynosure were sticking with me. Not a goddamn thing. Not even the super shreddy solo in A Dialogue in B-flat minor could save that song. But that solo does rip, so let's listen to it anyways. Okay, it's verdict time. I know I talked a lot about vocals and also guitars already, but I really want to point out a noticeable absence of lengthy guitar solos and a total underuse of Chris Broderick's chops. I'd also like to point out that while I didn't mention the drums once during the review, there are a few insane drum fills and even a couple blast beats that are hella mosh-worthy on the record. But we set out to answer a question. Does In Flames still have that melodic death metal fire burning inside of them? Absolutely. Does that fire shine through 100% of the time? Absolutely not. Overall, not too punishing of a listen. I would say at least 3 of the songs on this album will make my current rotation playlist. All things considered, I'm giving In Flames Foregone a 3 out of 5 skulls right here on Overkill Reviews.
Not bad, not bad.
All right, guys, what did you think of this album? What do you think of my rating? What do you think of the points I made? Let us know in the comments. Please tell us. Speak your minds. All right, it's time for some shoutouts. These are other current tunes that I think you should take for a spin. Drain dropped a new single earlier this week. It's called Evil Finds Light. It's pure Californian thrashy crossover hardcore goodness with one of the most fun music videos I've seen in forever, featuring the man himself, Colin Young from God's Hate. Spin that shit. Enforced also dropped a single earlier this month. It's called Ultraviolence, and while they're still checking off all those boxes to fit inside of the confines of hardcore, this band has become so much more extreme and thrashy than their contemporaries. It's way less Anthrax and way more Slayer, and I'm super stoked on it. Really looking forward to this full record. Whoa, look at that. 3 singles. Night Demon also dropped one. It's called Outsider. It's the latest one from the pure American heavy metal rockers led by champion of the trad metal scene, Jarvis Leatherby. This tune shows the band flexing their songwriting chops, and if you're into what Haunt or Pounder or High Spirits are doing, this is going to be the pick for you. All right, that's it from me. We'll catch you next time. I've been Daniel Dekay on Overkill Reviews.